up in like a kind of like a suburb area, and there was times when I would skateboard, and it was rare for a black person to be skateboarding, so I would be skateboarding, and then I would get made fun of by actually my own people. I would get made fun of for skateboarding. Like, they would be like, "Oh, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, that's for white people," or vice versa. White people would be like, "What are you doing skateboarding? Like, you don't know how to skate." Like, so it's just, it is, like I said, racism exists both ways still.
Racism's, it's not gone. It's being suppressed and suppressed. So now that it's not no longer spoken out as it used to be. I remember one time I think I was driving from my mom's house, and I was in my Camaro. I had Bumblebee. I was driving around, and there was this old guy. He was an old white guy. And he had his little sign up on the side of the road, typical bum sign. And so I stopped, and he looked in the car. He was like, "Man, it's a nice car." And I was like, "Thank you." And I reached over, grabbed some change, put it in his hand, and he was like, "Wow, thank you for all these coins. You're a fly-ass nigger in this car. And it didn't really hit me. The light changed green, and I was just sitting there like, did he compliment me, or was he being racist?
I would say yes. Racism, bigotry, prejudice, it still exists because of a lack of information. It's ignorance. And more than anything, it's the inability for one person to look past the visceral, the surface level. And sometimes we spend a little too much time looking at our minor differences, like the foods we eat, the way we look, the color of our skin, the way we comb our hair, the clothes we wear. Those are just minor, no pun intended, but when you look at the greater picture, we have actually more in common as human beings. I can tell you one incident. When I was 10 years old, I was playing basketball during recess, and one of the instructors there in the grade school was the yard duty person, and I was underneath the basket doing a shot, and then the teacher had a basketball on, and I heard him from 15, 20 feet away, said, "Watch out, here I come." But the time I knew it, I hadn't moved out of the way, and he just knocked me down. His knee hit the back of my knee, and my knee hit the asphalt, and boy, did that really smart. And he saw what he had done. He didn't say, "Oh, I'm sorry," or anything like that. "Are you okay?" The first thing that came out of his mouth was, "What's the matter? Don't you understand English?"
Throughout the semester, we had in the class many discussions about what life is for blacks or African Americans in the United States. And we talked about things such as like the Middle Passage, how they were brought from West Africa, they were brought over to the United States, and then from the United States they would take goods to the European nations, and then the cycle would start all over. We learned about slavery. We talked about slavery, how they were slaves pretty much since they came over from the 1800s, and the end of slavery, which was pretty much around the 1940s, the real end of slavery. We also talked about the civil rights and, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. So this video, this short documentary, if you will give us an insight, hopefully, on two aspects of life for blacks and minorities in general here in the United States. I'm gonna interview 3 different people in this video, and the first person I interview is Timothy Logan, who is a Cal State San Bernardino graduate. He actually graduated in criminal justice, and he wanted to be a police officer, but he changed his careers. So he's going to give us an insight on why he changed his career, and he's also going to tell us why education should be important, not just for blacks, but for every person in general. And the second person I'm going to interview is Professor Daniel Jacobo. I'm going to interview him on what life is like for blacks and minorities in the motion picture industry. I actually have some statistics here, and this is from a report done on diversity in Hollywood. This was done at UCLA. It's called the 2014 Hollywood Diversity Report. This is from the Center for African American Studies at UCLA. 89.5% of movie heroes are actually white, and only 10.5% are minorities. We have 87.8% white directors and only 12.2% minority directors. The third person I interview is a fellow by the name Ryan Arrington. He's a rapper, a music producer. His rapper name is Orion. So I'm gonna interview him about hip hop and the hip hop culture. And him being a rapper should have some insight on whether hip hop has changed or not from its roots back in the 1970s. So the first person I'm gonna interview is Timothy Logan, and let's get right on to it.
We worry about a swagger being on a million. Them luxury whips are seemingly appealing, and the ice on your neck just.
University did you go to?
I graduated Cal State San Bernardino in 2010 with a bachelor's in criminal justice.
As you were growing up, was education always an important part?
Of course, my mom. I remember days that I try to stay home from school when I tried to get all sick. She was like, oh, she just still make me go anyway. Everybody, both me and my sister, we had perfect attendance, and my mom, she was on top of things. Always, gotta go to school. You gotta go to school, and just ingrained from when we were young.
Are you currently practicing what you graduated in?
No.
Well, why do you think that is?
I think that has to do with a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
The economy right now is fucking terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've changed from the time that I graduated to now, just based upon what's been going on in my career field with policing and all that. And all, it's just, I see all the politics in law enforcement and stuff like that. Because at first, I was a diehard. I was about to be. I was going to be a law enforcement officer. I was going to be out there kicking in doors and all that stuff. And I seen what people are capable of, what politics is capable of, and it separates justice and being fair to people. And that's something I don't want to be a part of anymore. I mean, statistics show that even more blacks and Mexicans are put away than anybody. So it's like, what are we training ourselves to do?
Exactly.
What would I be training myself to do if I were to be a law enforcement officer? And that's why I looked into an alternative career choice.
Okay, and that is?
And that is my company down in Corona. We're a World Financial Group. We're a finance company. Financial services, and I feel like what we do there is essentially what I wanted to do altogether at the beginning. I mean, just to help people.
We see like minorities that don't go to school, they don't get a higher education, they don't go to college or universities, and a lot of them actually end up dropping out from high school. How important do you think education should be? Should we make it a priority?
I think education should be a priority for everyone. I think that an educated people allows for a larger population to make better decisions about everything.
All right, when the Anglos enslaved the African natives, they came up with a name to refer to them as a whole. And I mean, everybody knows what the name is now. So what do you think of that word?
I think that no particular word has power unless you give it that ability.
Yeah.
It just goes to how far it affects you personally. I think that in the connotation, when someone says it as a racist term, then there's a lot more that's behind that other than just saying, what's up, my nigga.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of black people, they use the term loosely. Even I do. I do it all the time. All right, everybody, that's the time we have with Tim. I want to thank you for finding this few minutes to spend with me and to give your opinions on the subject. Anytime, bro.
That was my friend Timothy Logan, and he gave us an insight on why he believes people should get educated, and why he changed his career paths. So now we're going to interview Professor Danny Jacobo, and we're going to get an insight, hopefully, on Hollywood life for minorities.
My name is Daniel Jacobo, and I have several degrees. My first degree is an Associate of Arts degree at San Bernardino Valley College in Fine Arts. And then when I graduated from there, I transferred to UC Riverside, and I got my BA degree in Fine Art and Chicano Studies. And so then I enrolled at UCLA Film School. It wasn't easy because it took several years to get in there because it's so competitive. But once I got there, I applied for the producing program. And so I was there. I literally completed the program in 2 years. The next 2 years, for a total of 4, was actually working on various projects.
As a motion picture expert, why do you think blacks were not given the same opportunities as whites in the movies?
Well, when we look historically at motion picture industry here in America, that it wasn't only the non-portrayal of African Americans, but also the negative portrayal, even if they were going to be portrayed. Donald Bogle, he has written several books, and the one that really has influenced me, he calls it, and you know, most people were like, wow, how would you have a title like this? And he calls it Toms, Coons, Mulattoes, Mammies, and Bucks, an interpretive history of blacks in American films. And in that book, it's a scathing report about this negative portrayals of African Americans from the very early days. And probably the most influential, the one that really turned the tide and got everybody's notice, was the movie Birth of a Nation by D.W. Griffith. That movie was protested by everyone. You see the derogatory stereotypes and you know, the mammies, the butlers, or the sassy African American woman, or if it was funny, it was a character like Stephen Fetchit, where they were known as individuals that weren't too bright, and so we laugh at because they're a little slow and they talk funny. And so that kind of like, when everybody sees that, that is like, oh, that's the way African Americans act in real life. These are typically menial roles that they were given.
Are there certain people that you can say they are solely responsible for the success of blacks in the movie industry?
Yeah, you know, as a student at UCLA, one of the reasons that I chose the producing program was because it is the producer that really carries the vision of any video or film project, because the producer is the one that literally packages the entire production. Is responsible for picking the story, and usually if it's mainstream, the stories will typically have an Anglo-Caucasian hero. But think about it, if you're a minority, you're going to draw from your own experiences. Most people have not heard of a African-American producer, director, writer by the name of Oscar Micheaux. And Oscar Micheaux was the premier African-American producer of what was called race films. And these were films that were all about the black experience, all black cast, written, produced, directed, and probably even the camera work and the editing by him. And he went around from town to town, and he would show these films to audiences that wanted to see themselves portrayed up on that screen. Or before there was Spike Lee, before there was Denzel Washington, before there was Sidney Poitier, there was Oscar Micheaux. And at the same time, not so much as a producer, but as a positive character, was a man by the name of Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson did a lot of films with Oscar Micheaux. He did expand to Hollywood, but again, he ran into a lot of the racism and bigotry that literally forced him out of the country.
A moment ago you mentioned D.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular movie portrays blacks in a very negative way. Do you think blacks nowadays are still being portrayed in a negative way in roles?
If I was going to be in a movie, I wouldn't be playing the lead. I'd be cast as a drug lord, a gangbanger, or some villain out to get, you know, someone or everyone or whatever it may be. When you create a movie, you are going to be working with stereotypes. My question to the writer or producer, you can go that route, but at the end, how is the hero changed? Is the hero still a stereotype? Is the hero a buffoon? Is the hero a caricature? Or is this a hero that at the end of the movie, and not only the character himself that has achieved self-respect, but at the end does the audience then see, oh, this person started out as a stereotype, but now look, this is a person just like any other human being.
When the whites or the Anglos enslaved the African natives, they came up with a name to refer to them as a people. By now everybody knows that word. What are your thoughts on this word?
I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood, and so most of my friends were African American young guys, just like my same age, and we would play basketball outside, and many times we'd get into these, these hard-fought battles there on the court, and then as the emotions would rise, I would be scoring points, and all of a sudden some of the black guys would call me the N-word. When they called me that, I felt like I was part of their world. It was, to me, a term of affection. It wasn't derogatory. And so you have to know the context in which that word is used. If you're, a person that is not part of that culture and you call an African American that, then them's fighting words, as they say. More than likely, the N-word then is a derogatory word that most people should not ever even use, because it has those meanings that go back to slavery, to the days before civil rights, Jim Crow laws.
Again, I want to thank you for the time you spent with me.
All right, you're welcome. Take care.
And that was Professor Daniel Jacobo. Just to back up some of the things he said, I have more statistics from the Hollywood Diversity Report done at UCLA Center for African American Studies. So writers by race, we have 92.4% white and only 7.6% minority. And this is actually what I aspire to become, a writer, a screenwriter, writing for TV shows and movies. And based off of this statistic is one of the reasons why I want to become a writer, so minorities can have more representation. So that was Professor Daniel Jacobo's interview. Now we're gonna go interview our last person, Ryan Arrington, better known as Orion.
Far from an athlete, don't run them track. Kill or be killed, some killing for real, and we do this like all the time. Wanna live a life of crime, not by design. He could lose it all at the drop of a dime. He got hood dreams. No self-esteem, just wanna shine like high beams, but he's not messing with the right team. Eyes need Visine. Are you superior or inferior? Cause the block always stay hot like leather interior. So Black America, I just wanna cherish ya, I don't wanna embarrass ya. I'm in love with the game, but I ain't trying to marry ya.
Alright, my name is Ryan Arrington. My artist name / rapper name is Orion. And I got into rapping because I first started, I was a producer, but I felt like I had that calling to start rapping because of where the state of hip-hop is right now. So
A few months ago, you were a guest on my radio show at Chaffey College. And just like you mentioned right now, you said the present state of hip-hop. Can you elaborate more on that? Like, what is exactly the present state of hip-hop?
Well, I feel like it's kind of rough right now because of the artists that are out influence the youth, and the message is not the correct message right now. It's talking about the women and the drugs, and it's all the industry. They have all the control, and I feel like if they were able to bring that positive message in, then it would be completely different.
Do you think we'll ever get the beautiful hip-hop culture back?
I believe so, because you could only have that negative state for so long. I've been to shows and I've met artists and seen artists, and I feel like the culture is slowly changing, but it's gonna change pretty soon.
What current artists would you think are trying to change hip-hop?
Lupe Fiasco, he speaks on like politics and stuff, and we got Kendrick Lamar. He's kind of in between right now, but he also has positive messages.
I noticed on your CD High of Dedication, you rarely use the N-word. And that actually reminds me a lot of the pioneers of hip-hop, like KRS-One, DJ Kool Herc, Grandmaster Flash. They rarely use the N-word in their songs.
Yeah.
Did you do that like on purpose to try to bring back the original hip-hop feel?
In a way, you could say I kind of did it on purpose, but I rarely use the word, so I think it was just, you know, a natural way of doing my music.
Well, I want to thank you, man, for spending these minutes with me. I know you're busy and you have a lot on your agenda.
Oh yeah.
I want to thank you for taking some time off of your busy day.
Oh, you're welcome, man.
Far from a criminal, try to avoid all them white.
Okay, that was our last person we interviewed, Brian Arrington, or also known as Ryan. We got an insight on education and policing. We got an insight on motion pictures and the industry, and we also got an insight on hip-hop. Based off of these 3 interviews that I conducted, and hopefully this was educational, hopefully you guys found this interesting, and maybe you will use some of this knowledge in the future. I would like to end with a quote that I found interesting. It's a quote by director Spike Lee, who is one of the most successful, and he influenced a lot of minorities, not just blacks, in the industry. I think that every minority in the United States of America knows everything about the dominant culture. From the time you can think, you are bombarded with images from TV, film, magazines, and newspapers.